So then, even though I got my tenure, now I'm writing for everyone, now I'm mentoring everyone, and I'm dealing with every student and every aggression that comes into school, that I'm having to go to battle for that. And I'm finding all the other Black educators are feeling the same way too. They're leaving academia because they're all getting burned out. We all are sick as Black individuals because we run our bodies down, and you're getting applauded for it because you're working so hard, as opposed to, no, this is making me sick. So that's racial battle fatigue, and that's how I got into it.
Hello, and welcome to Keyboard. I'm the host. Today I'm Thembi. Tomorrow I might be Tembi. It is what it is. So on this podcast, I talk with distinguished individuals in the fields of arts, education, and technology. I like to focus on a particular type of builder, people who build on ideas or who build people. This episode's guest does both, and he is none other than the Emmy Award-winning Scot Reese. Scot is a professor emeritus in performance at the University of Maryland, go Terps, focusing on Black theater, directing, and musical theater. He's actually a huge part of my story, y'all, and there are hundreds of artists across the world who can say the same. I asked Scot about the early stages of his career, his creative process, his inspiration, and we talked about racial battle fatigue because, in addition to his own personal accomplishments, this man has spent decades shaping artists, shaping programs, shaping institutions. We are so much better for having Scot Reese with us. I could go on and on, but let's hear from the man himself, shall we? Welcome, Scot Reese. How are you?
I am doing gorgeous today. How about yourself?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm so happy to have you on Keyboard.
And thank you for asking me to do it. I was looking at all the people that you had done in season 1 and season 2. Such an august group of people that I feel, friends, colleagues, and people that I liked getting to know. So thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. Thank you, Scot. All right, let's jump in. So tell us your first memory of theater and what did that awaken in you to join us here in the theater universe?
Okay, so you asked the very first one.
Yep.
It was playing a duck in my grade school play. And what it awakened was, I was so proud of the costume because where I grew up, we didn't have real costume that. So I got a box and I made my duck costume, and the flaps on were my wings. And I just had, pieces. My mother was a seamstress.
Oh, perfect.
And she just said, well, if we put some straps on the box, and then these can be your wings. And so already I was designing and performing, and that was probably like either first or second grade. And I never looked back.
Oh my gosh. Scot, please tell me there's a picture of this somewhere still existing.
No. Too bad, yeah.
You're breaking my heart. I would love to have seen little tiny Scot Reese in his little duck costume. So from that point on, you said, yeah, this is what I'm doing.
No.
Oh.
Then I was a music major. So I didn't come into theater until college. So my whole life was built. I thought I was going to be a band director. And I played trombone, and then everyone in my family played an instrument. So I learned baritone, flute, French horn. My dad played organ. We had both an organ and a piano in my house. And so I took lessons and I taught, and that was until my sophomore year of college. And they were doing the Royal Family, and I was in a swing choir group with music. My friend Sal Viviano, who's now a big Broadway performer, they need one more person to do the Royal Family. I said, no, I'm band and, I love the singing, but acting, I've never really done it. So it was, come on, we just need one more person. And this was a school that all the kids from Steppenwolf went there before. It was Eastern Illinois, and then they went to Illinois State, and then they, in graduate school, formed Steppenwolf. But like Joan Allen was a senior when I was a freshman, John Malkovich. So I just happened to be in this 2-person theater department that had these kind of actors. So I did the show, and as that proverbial, the bug bit me. And that's when I go, oh, I guess I'm going to do it. So I look back, it was the same kind of feeling. When I was a duck, I had no fear. But when I started doing it in school with all these people, it's like going, oh my gosh, I like it, but it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it's definitely a different feeling. And maybe then you're really thinking about what your future is going to look like, right? You're now on the cusp of professionalism. You're saying, okay, what am I really gonna seek out here? And so you went into the actor track. You still had the
Yep.
music there,
Mhm.
but then you became a director. What happened between the acting and the directing?
Okay, so that was huge. I was in Los Angeles and I wanted to do more. And I was lucky. I got into TV and film and that kind of stuff, even though I wanted to do more stage work. So then I moved to New York to do more stage work. And then all of a sudden, I'm auditioning for stuff, and the TV money's running out. And I get this TV show on CBS on Boston, a morning talk show. And even though I never really directed before, other than Friends, when people didn't want to direct, you'd step in and direct. That Liz Calloway was my co-host, a Tony nominee for Baby, and she was wife of Miss Saigon and Grisabelle and Cats for 7 years, and her sisters Ann Hampton Calloway. So they hired us because they wanted performers instead of talking heads. It was a morning talk show on CBS. It was right after, like whatever their CBS this morning. Then we were local programming for 7 to 8, and then they go back to it. And I was writing parodies and satires, and we had a soap opera for families since I'd done soaps in LA. So I started directing all these things, and like Liz was my muse. Whatever, like we do like a Calvin Klein obsession commercial, and we do America's Home Videos, and blah 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 blah. So I had a 3-year contract, and in TV and film and stage, you never get those contracts. And I had a partner at the time, and they said, if there's anything you would do other than act, what would it be? And I said, I think teach and direct. And they said, well, why don't you go to school and get a degree in that? Oh, I didn't know you could do that. So he was getting a job at a law firm in Chicago. And so I applied to go to Northwestern or DePaul. And I knew DePaul from the Art Institute of Chicago because I grew up in Illinois. I didn't know from Northwestern because I was a kid without means. And it was like either Illinois State, Eastern Illinois, Northern Illinois, which were like $1,000 tuition back when I was going to school. Northwestern was like, you could have been saying Harvard. It was not on my radar. So I auditioned for both. I get into Harvard, I get into Northwestern, but I don't get into DePaul. My partner's looking at the website. He goes, you know what? I think this Northwestern's a better school.
Oh, you didn't even realize it. It worked out perfectly. Oh, that's
It
great.
just worked out. And fortunately, that Craig Kinzer was the head of the directing program. They were making it from a 2-year program into a 3-year program. So I was the first cohort. And my other cohort person was Pam Hendrick, and she had had her own theater company for 20 years. I had been a professionalist for 15 years. So Craig was smart. He said, hey, I need to have more mature people in this program if we're revamping that. It'd be too hard with just young folks. So I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and directed my butt off there.
Wow. Okay. I like that. So you came in as they were expanding the program and adjusting the program as someone with experience. That was definitely smart on his part.
Yeah.
So you do that, you get your MFA, you go back out. Now you're armed with this extra credential and you're really working. What happens then? You talked about realizing you wanted to direct and teach.
Mm-hmm.
What happened then once you got your MFA in directing?
Well, I realized I really had a strong acting technique from studying with, in Los Angeles, one of the best acting teachers was Daryl Hickman. And Daryl Hickman had a technique which I still use to this day. It's, nuts and bolts, everything that we were, character, relationship, place, activity. It was, you did what he said and you could do scene work and monologues. Then when I moved to New York, I was fortunate, okay, get into acting classes, find your community. So I auditioned for Uta Hagen's acting class. I think probably about 200 people audition, and she lets like 40 people in 2 classes. So I kind of realized, I was good in Los Angeles. I was, booking soaps, sitcoms. I was a working actor until I was 26 when I worked out there. And I didn't realize how successful I was because I still didn't feel like I had the house and the TV series and that kind of stuff. I was just a working actor. As a Black actor on these shows, and that was my job. I wasn't having to cater anymore. And I was doing commercials too and industrials and singing jingles. So it wasn't until I moved out to New York that I realized, oh my God, I was a working actor and as a young Black actor. So I'm in Uta Hagen's class, and her technique, along with Daryl's, just made the perfect meld of how you could approach acting. And as a director, the director, they never really coached me, or they didn't. It's like, do it again, do it funnier, do it faster. And when I went to Northwestern, I was able to use that technique of Uta Hagen and Daryl Hickman while directing. And I had kids in the other acting class say, hey, Scott, can you work with us? Because we're not getting this from our acting teachers at Northwestern. We're rolling on the ground like reptiles. We're doing animals. We're, observing people, but there's no technique. So I have a technique. So, and then also at Northwestern, Craig Kinzer, who was my mentor and the head of the directing program, he was a big Brecht person. And so Brecht was the person who really codified a technique. So I had the directing technique, Brecht, and then Uta Hagen and Daryl Hickman, and all of that together gave me this directing technique. And then forcing, when I was at Northwestern, my first year, Lloyd Richards was directing Two Trains Running at the Goodman, and they needed a assistant director for him. Well, there were 14 kids in the MFA program, both design and directing. I was the only Black person. So it's,
wow,
you're going to be assisting. It's like, I just started here and they already told me my writing isn't that good and you better get it together. And thank God my partner was an attorney. So looked at all my papers and helped me, because I was a performer for 15 years and a music major before that. It wasn't like I had a lot of good writing skills. In Northwestern play that you had to be a good writer. So I learned that technique. And Sandra Richards, who taught Black theater at Northwestern, I went to her and she said, Scott, there's nothing that you're going to learn in these four walls that you're going to learn exponentially from Lloyd Richards. He was head of Yale School of Drama. He was head of the Playwright Center at the O'Neill Center and was directing all the August Wilson plays. So I go, okay, so who am I? I don't think that I can just do my degree and assist August and Lloyd. And he sat me down and he said, we need more Black directors. We need more Black teachers. This is the Yale School of Drama. And I didn't know anything about that. And he goes, between him and Sanders, there's so few Black academics and there's more women than there are men. So it's your responsibility with this degree that you've gotten and the people that you meet to go out. Because I thought I was going to first just go and be a director once I got into Northwestern. I didn't know I was going to educate. It was Sandra that sat me down and then Lloyd and said, no, this is a responsibility. You've been given these tools now. You have to go out and do this and pass it on. So what was the question?
No, you answered it.
Okay.
The question was, I talked about directing and educating and those connections. No, that was incredible. And I mean, just all along the way, you're just rolling with the heavyweights the whole time, right? Like the incredible luminaries of our field. And you're sitting right there with them, working with them, learning technique, which is really incredible. And it is such a privilege for all of us, including myself, who've been able to be directed by you and been your students and, your mentees. And it's just incredible, the story that you have and the way you've connected to others and the way that we get to connect to you. And I think about when you got your MFA in directing, you were already experienced, not in directing yet, right, but you were experienced in the field. Yeah. And so then you went on to teach and also to direct. You just explained your creative process and how you put the pieces together with the technique and the acting and everything. Has any of that changed over time since you got that MFA and all the way until now, where you've been directing for a few, I would say a couple of decades
30.
At this point, 30, 30 years you've been directed. Have you changed anything about your approach, or do you find that that same approach works and it's just changing, the references obviously for time, but does that still stand the test of time for you? Yeah,
well, because I just taught my last acting class, these babies.
Aww.
As a teacher, you keep getting older and they stay at the same age. Yeah. And it was acting for non-majors. And I use the same technique and they are doing a monologue. And, a lot of people do monologue. Okay, feel it and go up in the middle of the room and do it. For me, it's placed that they have to do it like they're in scene. And so you're trying to, so your activity might be preparing dinner for your partner. So they're bringing in plates, dishes, food, water, and that everything, nothing can be mimed. And I'm finding, and the same thing with their scene work. I had these three ladies that did a scene from Waitress, the movie or the musical. And so we've been working on technique and place and event and all that kind of stuff. And they come in and they're putting their costumes on. They are actual waitress costumes from the movie or the musical. And these are non-majors. And I go, we went on.
Where did you find those? Yeah.
Yeah. And they had gotten real pies because one lady worked at she was a restaurant. So she got pies from her stuff and they incorporated at the end that everyone got pies and real knives. And one had worked as a maitre d' at a restaurant. So they were rolling their napkins in the silverware because I would say it has to come from yourself. So these non-actors that I used the same technique all these years, they were able to go from never, and none of them had acted before, to doing a full scene from a movie or a musical. And one of the best comments was that, Scott, we come into this class, we don't know each other, and we're doing these monologues, which half of us don't even know what monologues are, except for what we've seen in movies. They're not good in the beginning. Then all of a sudden, you give them some adjustments and they're acting. And I go, the trick for me is, and a lot of you make us do all this busy work. No, for me, it was activities. If you're concentrating on what your objective is, so what do you want from the person in the scene, and what are you doing physically, you're not worrying about line readings. You have to get your clothes together before you go to the office, or you're going home for the weekend and have to get everything packed up before you get out of the house. If you're doing that and you only have a 90-second monologue, all you can concentrate on getting everything together. You're not worried about how you're saying it. For me, when I first had acting classes, it would just be me in the middle of the room or me and you on two chairs, and I'm trying to act. And that was just so counterproductive. You can do that when you're a mature actor, but when you're young, if you give them the basics, a friend explained this to me when we were just having an alumni event. There was a difference between you and another directing teacher. If you're in Scot's directing class, it's like baking a cake. He gives you the recipe, the ingredients, and might even crack a couple of eggs for you, and he'll be there until it comes out of the oven. And then you'll taste it, and if it's right, it's great, and if not, he'll figure out how we readjust it to do it again. Another person teaching directing says, you're baking a cake, there's two ingredients, and I'm allergic to mushrooms. Go. Yeah. And I didn't know that was the reputation that I had. They go, yeah, and I would say it's like plumbing. You might need a wrench here or a screwdriver, but I will help you do that. And I'll tell you where you have to go behind the toilet to do it. And then you do it. And if it works, great. If not, let's give another tool. So for me, it's always been about technique, and the technique works. And it's from these people that came together to give me the technique that I was able to pass on. I think, for me as directing you, that I don't really care how you feel. I never ask you, give me anger, give me this. It's like, how do you achieve your objective, and what are you doing physically? And then there's so much other questions that we do, and you've worked on your character and your relationship and what's going on. But if I give you these tools and set up a safe space for you to work in, and also it's about casting. I've hired the people, not because I need to teach them as professionals how to act, but you know how to do this. I'm just guiding you through this method.
Yeah, I have to say, when I think about the shows that you've directed me in, and I think about how much space I had to fully realize the physicality of my instrument, I think that's what's contributed to me really fulfilling my potential as a physical actor, in that you wanted that. You made it clear that we should be acting from the tip of our head to the bottom of our feet, and that you're not just acting with your neck, or sometimes we have that tendency to try to act with our necks or just our faces and everything. And that's definitely something I've passed on. It's like, hey, you're present on stage. You're not controlling where we look. So if I'm looking at a part of you that's dead, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And now I've been pulled out of the scene. So I've always really appreciated how free I've been able to be in exploring character under your care. And it makes so much sense, like the plumbing or making the cake and just, giving the ingredients and being there to guide the person
Yeah.
because you trust your actors. You trust them to do what they've been cast to do, which I really love.
And this worked
But
with very
oh yeah.
natural plays and more non-realistic, because I was fortunate to have those two extremes with you. Crumbs on the Table Joy could have been the most realistic that you have with some magic realism going on.
Mm-hmm.
But then one of my favorite shows I've ever directed professionally is from the Mississippi Delta.
I'm so grateful that you said that because it's definitely one of my favorite shows that I was in.
And we had no props. We had
No.
shawls and the costumes, and everything that you did was a physicalization by using your shawls somehow, or your bodies, or the chairs, and made a whole world of how many characters. So I love, and like when I directed In the Red and Brown Water was another one of those plays where there was no props at all, but we're still creating a space that makes it seem realistic in a non-realistic atmosphere. So I love, and that's very like that Chicago school of Steppenwolf, of just that complete body awareness where almost it's not choreographed, but it's a complete, it's in between Ntozake Shange's A Choreo Poem and that very physical theater of the Grotowski. So that's where I love it. It's like we can do it all, but it still has to be based in that realism, even if it is the most abstract play.
Right. Something that's interesting, and I consider now, how we take in information. Have we lost our imagination as audience members? Can you do a piece like from the Mississippi Delta now and have the same response? Because have we sacrificed our imaginations for the memes, for the scrolling,
No,
for all of the... No, you
no.
say no.
They just had a wonderful New York Times review of a fabulous play, Eurydice, Sarah Ruhl's play, with Brian Darcy James and Maya Hawke. And it is just one of those pieces of physical theater storytelling that is just up there, like with the Baltimore Waltz. Also, they just did a revival of that like a couple of years ago, which is complete physical theater, couple props through storytelling. So they're still out there.
And you feel like people, audiences are receptive and showing up for that kind of theater. That's encouraging.
I just saw, and once again, it's not going to be Broadway. There will be some Broadway plays, but I was just at the Public Theater and saw Carol Churchill's One Acts. Oh my God. It was just, this one was, they're on a beam. It looks like they're up on a New York City construction site. They're just on this beam. And like they turn and they move and they change and they play. And you're looking at space and time and just very, viewpoints kind of stuff. And you just sit there. And then in between each of the one acts, there was a juggler, but theatrical juggling. And then in between another act, it was like Cirque du Soleil. It was a woman who was doing that contortionistic performance. She had these four poles that were put into the ground, and she's juggling her body on them. And the audience was like, oh, how great to use that as the interact between the scenes. And you didn't have to have all the Cirque du Soleil. You just had these circus performers. And Carol Churchill is pretty dense anyway. So I go, no, you go to the right theaters. And we still have, and I think it's the opposite, that we're going to look so much more for that. But since we can stay at home and watch every movie on TV now, but what you can only do in theater is theater. So I think the more people that try to replicate movies on stage is wrong. They should be doing what you can't do. And I think that's why, like right now, the Tony Award, the Betty Boops, the Outsiders, the things that are just, I'm trying to think, Audra in Gypsy, Sunset Boulevard completely stripped down. So I think you're going to see the opposite. Let's not try to do what we do on TV and film. Let's make theater be oh, Mary. Oh my God, look at what Cola Scola is doing with this story of Mary Todd Lincoln as a cabaret performer that you couldn't see on TV. It just wouldn't work.
So you have hope for this.
Oh
You're saying we're going to be okay.
yeah,
Okay. I appreciate that. I'm going to try to come out of my dark scary corner
yeah,
and look into the light.
yeah.
Okay, but let me ask you this though, Scott.
Mhm.
We've passed now a generational benchmark, a couple of them actually in American theater, where and I know you see this as an educator. We're asking young actors that are at this point 2 generations removed
Mhm.
from the settings, from the text, from the styles and the work, and we're asking them to interpret characters that they have very limited familiarity with, and they don't have that next generation to that has been talking about it or to explain it.
Mhm.
How do you bridge that gap for them in the rehearsal room?
You know what? It goes back to technique. As I was talking in with my acting, that I was just doing a workshop production at Kennedy Center in the fall, and I had the most. There's Erica Rose and Von Mitter and Raven. It was just once again relying on technique and doing the dramaturgy and setting up a space where everybody gets to contribute. We only have 5 days to do this workshop production. And instead of just being with the books in hand, it's okay, let's just get it on its feet. And even though you have the books in hand, let's really physicalize all of this. So you're going to your grandmother's for a picnic. What do you all need? How are you going to get there? Let's 4 chairs. Okay, let's get in a car. Okay. And now your 2 kids in the back seat, you're fighting, and dad's having to look in the rearview mirror. And mom, she doesn't have to look. She can just slap you and hit you in the ear because she has eyes in the back of her head. They all know it and they start playing. Okay, now let's just put the scripts down and just improv it. You know how much they knew from it because it was physically in their body already. So for me, and I had more mature actors like Erica, another generation, Vaughn, and then the youngest, a couple of kids that had just come out of school. And it's about, oh, if we're agreeing that we're just playing make believe and having a good time, it doesn't matter what generation in. If I set up a room that everybody gets to contribute.
I love that. Okay, so you're not getting so mired in the text that they don't make the human connection. You make the human connection first
Yeah.
because the dramaturgy can be done.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes
And
sense.
and also we had the best dramaturg in the room, Phaedra Carpenter. So
I
you
mean,
have someone who is answering any of the questions that we have, but it really and I it was so funny in the beginning. It's like I was so technical and I hadn't worked with many directors, and I was directing Doug Brown, fabulous Doug Brown and Michael Toledo in pantomime, a 2-person play. It's
wow.
two completely different styles of acting. And I started with warm-ups and doing check-ins and ahs, all these things that I do. And because I had, how can we get on the same place with a two-hander? And I came back, and I think Carrie Gillette was a stage manager. And I said, "Where's Michael and Doug?" And she goes, "They're warming up."
Yes.
And it was like,
I
how many
love it.
times do you ever warm up with other actors in a production? It depends on the production. But I kind of go, I was a little tentative to do that in the beginning with mature actors. And now I go, no, by doing check-ins and warm-ups, that's going to give us more time because the people are going to be so ready to work, as opposed to walk in the rehearsal hall, everyone has their coffee, you pull the scripts out and you start talking and act. No, I said, we got to go back to the fundamentals and the technique and play.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a maturity.
Yeah, and the different points of access. I mean, you just made me think about like beyond again, the dramaturgy, of course, is essential, but using different points of access to the work that aren't necessarily verbal or language based.
Exactly. And we all got
Mm-hmm.
into this because we had good high school drama teachers that made us play games and improv and all that kind of stuff. So why are you taking out the fun part to only go to the result? If you got into this because there's a great movie out, 2024, called Ghostlight. So it's by Steppenwolf actors from Chicago, and you wouldn't know hardly any of them, but it's called
Ah,
Ghostlight. And it's a parable about Romeo and Juliet, only the father, the family, mother, father, and daughter have lost a son, and you don't realize what has happened to him. He has self-harmed himself and died. And the father isn't dealing with it. The daughter's acting out. They're going to therapy, blah, blah, blah. The father goes into a he's working construction on the street, and there's a theater, and they're loud. So the ladies, hey, can you keep this down? And instead of yelling at him, well, we can only do so much when we're jackhammering. And
Right.
a turn of event, he joins the theater company. And because they just need someone else to do the father in, Romeo and Juliet. And he's never seen, his daughter's a theater geek, but he doesn't know anything about it. And he's talking to his daughter about, so what happens? And then you realize they do the production. He becomes Romeo and this other lady becomes Juliet, and they're in their 50s. But it's a community theater, and there are only like 8 people in the play. And by him going through this Romeo and Juliet, he understands what it was like for his son and best friend to try to commit suicide.
Wow.
Yeah. So
this is a film?
It's a film. Yeah. Okay. And you're seeing them do theater warm-ups and like, think of someone that's never done that. And they're doing shakedowns and doing stop. And she puts on music and you're supposed to dance to it. And all the theater kids, they're doing it. And he's like, what? So it was just reminding me of, theater is so healing and drama. So why would we take out the fun part to just do the dry part?
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Speaking of dry parts,
mm-hmm.
We're going to shift a little bit.
Sure.
I'm going to talk about racial battle fatigue.
Ooh. Okay.
Mm-hmm. You've taught on this. Yeah. You've spoken on this. Mm-hmm. I think that it became more of a discussion around the time of the pandemic and the supposed racial reckoning. Mm-hmm. What is racial battle fatigue, and how has it shown up in your life?
It's funny because it was way before the pandemic and way before George Floyd. It was 2008. Mm-hmm. There's a critical race theorist, William Smith.
And I know Colleen talked about it. You talked about it at the symposium too. So we can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. It was originally used in reference to the experience of Black men in America, but now expanded to describe the negative and racially charged experience of all people of color in the United States. William Smith defines RBF as cumulative result of a natural race-related stress response to distressing mental and emotional conditions. These conditions emerge from consistently facing racial dismissive, demeaning, insensitive, and or hostile racial environments in individuals. People of color experience daily battles of attempting to deflect racism, stereotypes, and discrimination in predominantly white spaces, must always be on guard or weary of the next attack they might face. Both anticipation and experience of racial trauma contribute to racial battle fatigue, causes people of color to suffer various forms of mental, emotional, and physical strain, which can lead to psychophysiological symptoms. Okay, so that's a lot to say. I was getting burned out by around that time period. I've been teaching since 95, 2005. So 15 years into teaching, and after 2 sabbaticals, I was burned. And I was going to like the Black Theater Network conferences in the summer. At ATHA, I go to BTA, Black Theater Association. I talk to other Black educators. Oh my God, I'm on every committee because I'm the person of color. Oh, I'm on every ECWIC. Oh, all the kids come to me because they're dealing with, we didn't even have the word microaggressions back then. They're dealing with racism and they come to me. Phaedra and I are talking, okay, as Black educators, you feel like, okay, everyone thinks that your tenure is a slam dunk, but then you find out the least amount of tenured professors are Black professors because nobody's done the work for their scholarship. And so they're not getting tenure because there's not enough Black scholars higher above to write for them. So then, even though I got my tenure, now I'm writing for everyone, now I'm mentoring everyone, and I'm dealing with every student and every aggression that comes into school that I'm having to go to battle for that. And I'm finding all the other Black educators are feeling the same way too. They're leaving academia because they're all getting burned out. And then I go, okay, this is racial battle fatigue. I do research on it and find out, Dr. Smith's work on it, and go, wow, this is a thing. And it's already been documented from 2008. So it's happening before, but nobody's talking about it. And so then I started doing workshops at Black Theater Network, at BTA, and at the Black Theater Symposium. And there was like youth, it's like, oh my God. Yeah, it's like we've all had a a cold, but didn't realize, oh, the cold came from running our bodies down. We all are sick as Black individuals because we've run our bodies down, and you're getting applauded for it because you're working so hard, as opposed to, no, this is making me sick. So that's racial battle fatigue, and that's how I got into it. And was so glad to have places to talk, because once again, as soon as you realize you're not crazy, I mean, you're not making things up, that this is actually a thing and we got to deal with it. And that gave me empowerment. I could say no to things. I go, no, I've done this too many times. No, this is what you're imposing. And now I love newer generations like Paige Hernandez. She's really, hey, room agreements. This is how we have healthy work environments. So I'm happy to say, I think because who I was as a teacher, and then the next generations was, okay, let's not replicate this. How do we change the institutions?
That's really powerful because, like you said, if somebody's suffering from something that they can't name and they can't understand, then a lot of times they will internalize it and make it feel like, okay, well, it must be something that I'm doing, or there's something wrong with me. But when you can make sure that that gets pulled out of the person, and the person can actually look at it and go, yes, yes, I have all those symptoms. Yes, I have to deal with that, because we still have regular life stuff to deal with
Yes.
that anybody else would have. So on top of that, we have these additional layers of stress that contribute to what you described, a lot of that physiological stuff that happens. And then when the physiological stuff happens, then it's like, what's wrong with y'all? Y'all are messed up,
Yes.
It's like, what do you mean what's wrong? Like, my body's responding to racism.
Yes.
And even at the generational level, right? Like at
Yeah.
the DNA level, that we know that
Yeah.
historically it sort of comes with us, comes with all of us. And so I appreciate that you spent time in your career really addressing this and helping people know that it's a real thing, and that they should say no, and that they should protect themselves, and they should consider not becoming everything to all people, because that's what happens, right? And everybody wants you to solve all the problems, none of which you created, most of which you suffer from, just like anybody else. And there's this expectation that you're going to be this martyr and fight for everybody. But what does that do to you and your body?
And you probably had the phrase growing up, work twice as hard for half the credit.
Yep.
So think, if you're working twice as hard, what does that do to you? And now, fortunately, we know, as you had referenced, the Black trauma that's generationally in our body is racial battle fatigue. So now they're calling it the racialized trauma that we have, but that along with us fighting so hard. So it's two things. You have the trauma in your body generationally, and all the fighting you're doing now. So it's just a no-win. So we better make it. It's smart that these kids are saying no, 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 because it's just too much.
It's too much. And it is important to say no, to say, I'm not going to take all that on. It's not mine to take on. And it's not mine to solve.
Yeah.
So, we spoke on it earlier in our conversation that you have recently retired from the
Yes.
University of Maryland after 30 years of teaching and being a leader in the Department of Theater, Dance, and Performance Studies. So, what do you want all of your students and your former colleagues to remember about you and your work from your time there?
People is asking about that, since I'm retiring, what's your legacy?
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of came up with it that I want my legacy is that they forget me, that I built a strong performing arts department with great new hires, Kenyatta, Fatima, and I don't want them to think, how would Scott do it? But that I've created such a wonderful foundation that they all feel free to be their authentic selves in a place built on loving kindness, compassion, safe from inner and outer danger, that everyone is whole in body, mind, and soul. They're happy, that they're people that are generous and helpful, strong, enduring, persevering, all these principles that I have supplied myself with through meditation and work, that the place that they go into now, it's so embedded in the walls of Maryland and hopefully some of the DC theater places, that they don't have to think about me. They just know that they're in a good place. Because the opposite was like, when I was there, okay, So what do I have to do? Because these other people before have built like musical theater. Ron O'Leary had built a musical theater program. It's like, okay, so what do I do to honor what he's doing? Because he was very clear about that, as opposed to me. And same with acting teachers at school that had been there before. This is the way we do it. Northwestern was it's Elvira Katz method and going down from that. And I wanted the opposite. No, we built this beautiful playground. You hire the best people. They come in and they have a safe space where like Fatima and Kenyatta, they don't have to hopefully go through the racial battle fatigue. Not solved that, but I made it a place where we have equal working relationships. Everybody pitches in. If we see someone's working too hard, say, hey, no, you're not doing the show next semester. You should just be doing your classes. So since I built that up, that's my legacy, is that they don't have to think about me. They're in a place where they can do their work.
Well, Fatima was definitely on the show recently and talked a lot about her experiences there. And definitely from what she said, I feel like that is coming to fruition because she talked about how free she felt in the work that she was doing, and she talked about how collaborative the creative and production teams have been, and just what a wonderful time that she's been having. So, I mean, I can at least say from that I think
That's good to hear.
that's what you wanted and that's what you talked about. And initially, I'm like, what do you mean forget you? But now I see what you mean. I think that's a really beautiful, selfless but strong and powerful statement that you don't want people to focus on you as a person. You want them to feel free to function and flourish inside of what you created. Because at the end of the day, you're right. It's not really about us as individuals. And that's probably where we go wrong, is sort of focusing on what I created or what I did. And I think, yeah, that's really wonderful. And so you specialized in Black theater and musical theater at the University of Maryland. What propelled you to those areas of focus?
Ooh, so Black theater, there were no courses in Black theater at University of Maryland when I got there because there were so few, first of all, people of color, or there were so few teachers. And they had some AASP classes. But at Northwestern, I had these wonderful classes in Black theater and performance with Sandra Richards, who was, fortunately, once again, she just happened to be one of the leading scholars in the country, in the world, for Black theater. And so I took all of her classes and I based my syllabi on the work that she had taught me. And fortunately, in a lot of classes, you just get one semester, but I did it from 2 semesters, late 19th century and 1960s, and then the 1960s to the present. I made sure there was a lot of performative parts of this because a lot of times it's just reading the plays. A play should be experienced, not read. And I believe you took the course with me. So for me, I wanted in this class, if you only have 1 or 2 classes that you know the beginning, the middle, and the end of Black theater performance. So that was from Sandra Richards and her saying, we don't have enough people teaching this. And now I have a legacy. Another legacy is I have those teach. And then I gave them over to graduate students. They would shadow me and then teach the course. And now with Fatima and Kenyatta, they're going to be teaching those courses. And they don't do it like that's. I said, you teach to what you teach the best. And with the graduate students, teach the best. So that's a legacy of having a school that this curriculum I started that is going on without me. And musical theater is strange because since I had trained in it at the Los Angeles Civic Light Opera Workshop, they would audition about, all over the country and pick 11 men and 11 women. And it was an 8-week course, 6 days a week at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. And you could not miss a class. And even if you're sick, you had to show up. This was way before, COVID, that kind of stuff. And they had the best teachers of acting, directing, choreographing, makeup, voice, and you study with all this. And everybody kind of went into musical theater. It was like the jumping, the springboard. They have a lot of, Broadway places like that now, but this was in Los Angeles. And as the Black guy, because they always cast, one Latin person, one Black person, one Asian person, the jobs weren't coming to me, but I was getting TV special. I was singing on the 25 most important people of 1981, which was like a People magazine thing. I was doing Norman Lear's I Love Liberty, I'm doing jingles for commercials. So, and then I'm doing my straight acting. And then I had a club act. So I started at the Horn and then doing it all over Los Angeles because I go, I want to sing. So how can I if I'm not getting the musicals? Because back in the day, we didn't have Audra McDonald who had broken the barriers. So you were either doing Black musicals or one person was maybe in the cast. So, and you were either doing Sophisticated Ladies or what else at that time? Dreamgirls came along in the 80s, the Tap Dance Kid. But in between that, there wasn't a lot of work. And also I was doing a lot of industrials. Industrials are the ones where there's a product like Mack Truck, and then they hire singers and dancers to perform at their convention in Las Vegas. So didn't do a lot of musicals, but did musical things adjacent to theater. And then I moved to New York. I thought, oh, more. And nope. Then I get the TV show. So it wasn't until Northwestern that Fred Kinzer, my mentor, said, Scott, you got to direct a musical. And I go, whoa, no, you're getting your MFA in directing. Musical is going to be part of it. So I took Dominic Massimi's, all his musical theater course was for 3 years because part of our thing was that you would observe the classes you were interested in. So after I took Black theater, then I observed. After I took the directing class, then I observed. So then you know how to teach it. And for 3 years, every musical theater kid that went out to be a star, I was directing them in class. And then I finally directed my first musical, which was Company. And this was back in 1995 before they did the gay version of Company or the non-gendered one they just did.
Yes.
So I had Bobby, instead of being a woman, was gay. And then, we didn't get rights for it. We just did it, asked for permission, forgiveness as opposed to permission.
Right.
And it all made sense when Sondheim, we found out later that it was a gay man, that, oh, of course Bobby would be gay. And we had the flight attendant be a gay person. So I like these musicals and I can direct them the way that I do it. And then I ended up directing after Ron O'Leary had passed University of Maryland. I took on his musical theater classes and then started directing musicals and then was directing around town. Once on This Island was Jerry Whitten's last show at Roundhouse. So he had asked me to do that. And I became the musical guy. And my classes, just like it's a technique, it's all about, first of all, learning singing the song and then doing scene work just like acting work. So I think University of Maryland is known for not just actors that sing well and not just good singers, but actors that sing well. So if you have someone like a Felicia Curry, the reason she's so good, she's an amazing actress that sings amazing. And that's what I always wanted to have my students do. So that's why I went into, and the same thing when they're doing their scenes. It's not just two people singing on stage. No, they're baking a cake, or they are putting their clothes together before they leave their partner, or they're, creating a meal for their partner who's come home. They go, but we got to sing. I go, yeah, and you got to do your activities also. And now you see so many
not just park and bark.
Park and bark, exactly. I was so against that. And then a lot of kids, Adam Shapiro was one of my students and had done all this, and beautiful musical theater performer, goes out to Los Angeles and he's doing movies, theater, all this, and he's on The Bear right now. And the first musical he did was like 8 years into it, one of the leads in Rent. And then he goes to Broadway and does Waitress with his partner, Katie Lowe's, on Broadway.
Wow.
So he had all the training, but he was so good at the acting that it was that led him as opposed to the musical theater.
I love that foundation of the vision of you wanted them to have both of the skills. You didn't want it to just be, okay, there's a lot of people who can sing.
Yeah.
But what else? What else are you bringing? That's not enough to really bring a character to life in that stark, dynamic view that we want to see them in.
And I also always use Audra McDonald as the guidepost. She has 6 Tonys, 3 are for straight plays, 3 are for musicals. So when my students come on, I want them to have that opportunity that you can't just audition for musicals. You're going to be auditioning for everything else along with the musicals. And usually you look at those musical theater performers, Will and Grace. So Deborah Messing, MFA in musical theater, Megan Mullally, huge musical theater Broadway person, Sean Hayes, not only musical theater, classical pianist, and William McCormick was Music Man on Broadway. So why are they so good in TV, and especially, a comedy farce like that? Because they have the musical theater training. They can hit marks. They know where the cameras are. They can juggle, talk, and move at the same time, which especially for 3-camera comedy shoots, that kind of stuff with a live audience. Look at Nathan Lane and Matt Bomer on the new Hulu series, one for musical theater performers. So I think that's in London, you learn how to sing, dance, and act. Emma Thompson, Kenneth Branagh, Kate, they're all singers. It just happens you know them as straight actors, but your whole toolbox in British theater is singing.
It's interesting that it's a little different here. I mean, I think about in a lot of markets, there's the musical theater folks, and then there are the straight theater folks, and
Yep.
and you have a few who can cross the lines, but not as many. So I appreciate that your focus was to get people on that track to be more versatile and more flexible and be able to get more work as a result. And one of the things that you've also done is you founded the Black Theater and Dance Symposium at the University of Maryland. Yay! I know a little something about that. I know a
Uh-huh.
little something about it. So I would love for you to just talk a little bit about what that is and how has that impacted the DMV theater community over the years? Because it's shifted, right? It started off as a yearly thing.
Right.
We did the first 3 years, year. And then there was a point, well, I'm not going to say it. I asked you.
Yeah, no.
What? Yeah, I just wanted to say like I know that the first 3 years it did what it did, and we'll talk about that. But then the decision was made to do it every 2 years, and so it's evolved, which is really lovely. I'd love just for you to talk about that.
Yeah, well, because you were the co-founder with me, and then so the Black Theater and Dance Symposium. We kind of talked about this maybe earlier, but we had a wonderful colleague, Walter Dallas, who just died right after the pandemic, and he was such a light in my life because as an older professor to my 50s, that you don't get mentors in your life at that age, and he just came to school because he was Freedom Theater. He had started directing the August Wilson plays after Lloyd had passed, and we got him at University of Maryland. And I just learned so much from him. And when he wasn't able to stay on, I was like going, oh my God, how do I replace someone like Walter? I said, oh, let's do the Black Theater, Symposium. And that's when I came to you and said, Thembi, I want to do something. And we had, I was with ATCO for a while, and then Jennifer Nelson, who founded ATCO, had stepped down, and then you were starting to fill in. And it was like, what can we do to galvanize, and they have to say the people, Jennifer and Kenyatta, that put galvanize together. I don't know if that was before or after the Black Theater Symposium.
Before.
Okay, yeah.
Because Galvanize is 20 this year.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So other than us seeing each other in shows, and a lot of times we were doing the same shows at the same time, you wouldn't see a lot of the Black actors. So I said, what can we do, like a family reunion, to get us all in the same room? And I think it also came from like me going to Black Theater Network, and we had all that for the academics, but we didn't have it for the performers. And I knew how important that was for us academics to get together. So I said, let's do this in town. And we had the beautiful Clarice Smith Center, and we had Lee Wilson Smiley, who gave us a budget, found a budget for us to do it. And it really was like a Black family reunion. And then we realized, okay, designers, who are the designers in town? We don't even know who they are. How can you be hired if we don't know who you are? Playwrights. Colleen put together the Playwrights Symposium. Phaedra Carpenter, dramaturgy. And so for me, it was, if we can gather us all in the hip hop, Paige, Dior, blah, 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 all these talents that we had that we didn't know that we all knew each other. So you have Salmaine and Baye and Dior and Paige. Oh my God, with everybody else. Now I want to learn how to teach hip hop theater. I didn't even know that you could do this. Or playwriting, I didn't even think of this, blah, blah, blah. So for me, if we got all these people in the room together from DC, and not only have a feeling of a family reunion, but it was a place to build our skills. That was and then I think one of the brilliant parts when we, in the middle, we would not just have lunch, but a chat and chew, where
the chat and chew was so great.
Yeah, you get everything together.
Yeah, no, I just it's so funny when you talk about that. You talk about the hip hop side. Is like you had Goldie in there too.
Yep.
She was there, like all. you had everybody in one space and you were able to really see in real time how much incredible talent and skill and vision and just the people who were in proximity to that space. I think it was so important. So the chat and chew was like everybody was all in this one big room and you could just see the incredible talent that existed in the area.
Oh, remember, and then all of a sudden, oh, by the way, we have a special guest, and Tazaki Shange showing up. You know,
What? I mean,
and it was just like,
can you
yeah.
imagine?
Then her
It was
assistant said, "Oh, she's in Baltimore, and she'd love to come here." And it's like, well, we'd love to have her. So that was that kind of thing that. And now it's nice to know that it keeps going on. That Fatima and Kenyatta have now taken it over, and we did it every other year because it got a little taken for granted. And then, oh, I got to do that again. It's like, oh no, let's take a little space. And then doing it every other year then made sense. And it was great. Like after the pandemic, it's one of the first things we brought back. And
oh good.
yeah, and it was a small group of people who still had masks. We said, okay, it's time to do it again. Yeah.
You're right in that after that first 3 years, we had so many rich panels, conversations, sessions.
Yep.
We touched on so much. And I do believe that after that third year, you're right. People felt like, okay, I got so much out of this.
Yep.
And that's such an important part of the process, I think, is to say, okay, is this not what people need at this point?
Yeah.
Let's make an adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
And we made the necessary adjustments. And that's it's important to be responsive in that way.
Yeah.
But I'm just grateful to have been a part of that. And I am glad that it's continuing. And it's just, like you said, another aspect of now Kenyatta and Fatima, they can just do it however, whatever the students need, whatever the community needs. Mm-hmm. That's how it should be shaped.
Yeah. And it was great that I handed it over to them before I left. And so they had the last one last year. And it was so great that I was just able to go and participate. And it was just brilliant to go, okay, and that's a legacy. They don't need to say my name or anything, but to know that this is going on. And then the same thing with like voices of color, creativity. So since I had started that program when we had so few Black performers in the theater department, and we couldn't even do shows because we didn't have enough to do an all-Black show. So we started out with this group called Voices of Color. And it was anyone that wanted to do singing, spoken word, poetry. It was like a coffee house. I don't know if kids these days know about coffee houses, but people in my different classes that were not majors or dancers would do this. And then we go, okay, we have enough people of interest in this now. Let's now do a show. And then that kind of went into that. And then it was years, I think like 5 or 6 years. And then the kid said, okay, I remember Lily Young, she was an Asian woman. She goes, hey, can I be in Voices of Color too? Because she didn't have any Asian friends to play with. So, well, you come in our playhouse and do this. Mm-hmm. And then there were some gay kids that said, hey, we don't have a group that feels like accepting us. I said, come on, I'm a gay Black man. You're definitely in this group. We had some of our first trans students in the group. And so then it changed to creativity because we said, okay, now we're kind of like being an elite group that isn't letting other people in since we're an all Black group. But how about anyone that's interested in Black issues and otherness? And that's it grew. And now, in the beginning, I think when you were there, maybe we had 10 or 12 people. Now they top it at 25.
Because there's just so many people who want to be involved.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. Another aspect of your legacy.
Yeah.
Now we're going to do some rapid fire word association. Okay. So I'm going to say a word or a phrase, and I want you to tell me either a common myth about it or a hard truth about it. Okay.
Okay.
Either a myth or a truth. It's up to you.
Truth. Okay. I like this game.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Starving artist.
Myth.
Okay. What's the myth? Can you tell me a myth about it?
Yes. That if you're a starving artist and you're going to really work real hard and you don't have to get paid for it. No. That fortunately I was able to get paid for my work. I came from my dad, who was a civil servant for the government. My mom was a seamstress and had her own hair salon. So it's like when I first started, my dad said, you take a vacation every year. You make enough money to do that and blah, blah, blah. So for me, I was not about starving. I was like, how do I find money to do my art? And I think too many people think that makes them a better artist. No, it doesn't. It just makes you hangry.
Did you say hangry?
Yeah. Hungry and angry.
That makes
That's a
sense. Yep,
starving artist.
angry.
Who wants to work with a
Hmm.
hangry artist?
No one.
Yeah.
Okay, great. American theater.
Ooh, myth or fact?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's either. It's a fact that we have American theater, uh, and I'm proud of American theater because just like jazz and the blues, that if we, teaching courses in Black theater performance, Black theater is probably the most American theater because it's not European-based theater. So I have to go. American theater is Black theater.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, racial battle fatigue.
Oh,
A myth about it or a hard truth?
hard truth. Hard truth. And still to this day.
Just is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Okay.
But now I think with our younger generation, they're holding people accountable and they're saying, no, because back when we didn't have hours to do shows. So you would rehearse until 11 o'clock at night. And you have tech that would go until 2. Or I remember doing a show at Only Theater. I was 2 o'clock in the morning and we're still in tech. And now it's like, no, you're done at 10:30. And this is how long, and we don't even do 10 out of 12s at many theaters anymore, So this new generation says, no, we're not going to burn ourselves out. Yeah. So I think there is racial battle fatigue, but we're starting to put guide rails in place so we don't burn out.
Okay. Mentorship.
Hard truth. Yeah. That I was lucky to have some wonderful mentors in my life. And I know that I've mentored some people and how important that relationship is. Yeah.
Okay. Auditions.
I loved auditioning back when I was doing it, especially singing, because there was a time that I could not pay a piano player and sing for people, even if it was just 4 people behind a table. So I know a lot of people just hate it. And I go,
Yes.
and the same thing when I would go and read for something. I go, okay, I'm not getting a lot of gigs in the beginning, so I get to act in a room. That's what I think what's sad about all the self-tapes is if you're not doing your craft a lot anyway, boy, when we got on those auditions, got to dress up, go to room, meet people, have a day. And I always tell my students, I'd always plan something fun after an audition, either go to a movie or take myself out for ice cream. So that meant if I did a bad audition, I get ice cream. If I do a good audition, I get ice cream. Or I get to see a movie at 7:30 because I had 2 auditions today. So it was always that, hey, audition day means it's something fun afterwards.
I love the way you framed that for yourself. That's so important because you're right. A lot of people don't like them. And then with the self tapes, you lose that connection with the other human beings behind the
Yeah.
table, right? It just seems like it's a lot less likely because a lot of times with auditions, you may not be right for anything in that particular piece, but they're looking at you for something else. Like, wow, this person's really great. Let me make a note on their material so that when we're casting this other deal, let's call them in for that. You're not really going to get that from a self tape. They
No,
barely even look at them. So you can't get a sense of someone's character and charm and charisma from through a screen.
no. And I
No.
remember that when I was in California, and June Lowry, who I think was the casting director, she would bring me in around 2 o'clock. And she told me this. She goes, you were the fun person we brought in after lunch. We'd seen 200 people already, and we knew that you were just going to be fun in the room. And you're probably, because I was a light-skinned Black man at the time when it was dark-skinned Black men, Courtney Vance, Denzel Washington, Wesley Snipes. But we would bring you to the person, and every once in a while, you were the guy because they were looking for someone different. So
Hmm.
after charming them and having fun in the room, and I go, so you brought me in for a lot of things I wasn't even right for. Yeah, they go, but you got some of them. So yeah,
Yeah.
you
Like,
wouldn't get
hey,
that from a
listen.
self-tape.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. And you got to act that day. Like you said, you wanted to act in front of an audience, even if it was an audience of 4,
Yeah. And then they
you
would
know?
bring me in as to be a reader for productions because they knew
Mm.
that I was good and they knew that I was good in the room. So then I'd be reading for all these things. And then the director or casting director would say, oh, that Scott Reese guy, the reader. Yeah, how about him? For parts that they weren't thinking me for.
Mm. Equity.
Oh, I went to Actors Equity Association as opposed to what is equity. Uh,
It's such a theater person thought. It's like, oh, equity, the union.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, it gets confused with another word. So let's think myth or hard truth. I think it's a myth because there isn't a lot of equity, and we have to make sure that we're going for equity as
Mm.
opposed to equality.
Aha. Okay. I agree with you. I think those words get mixed up a lot too, equity and equality and
Yeah,
what they mean and which
yeah,
ones we should care about.
yeah.
Very good. You win the game. You did
Yay!
a
What do I
great
get? A
job.
tote bag?
Absolutely nothing.
Bragging rights.
Bragging rights. Exactly. Exactly. Oh my goodness. Okay, Scott. So now that you're retired officially,
Yep.
do you think that you're going to prioritize getting some rest, or do you see yourself getting involved in more projects
Oh,
accidentally?
getting rest. Yeah. That
Oh, good.
I kind of, and that's why I moved to, a smaller place and downsizing and upgrading my life. So I know I just want to travel for a while and I have to refill my artistic well because I've worked since I was 14 and, other jobs until the college, worked my way through college and worked my way all, and I've been lucky to do the job that a lot of people, God, so I catered for like 3 years in Los Angeles. And then from the time I was like 24 on, I was working and not having to do a day job. And, then went to a TV show that I made good money on, that I was able to buy a house when I was 29. It's a young black guy from a town of 3,000 people. I didn't think, unless I was working in the car factories, that was going to happen. And went to good schools and then taught at a place that I feel was my home for 30 years, working in a city that I didn't even choose. The city kind of chose me, that I have so many beautiful friends in the theater community. There's not a show or a house or theater that I go to that I don't run into somebody that I know, that I haven't directed with, worked with, has directed me. Long story short, I've done a lot, I made a lot, but once again, the racial battle fatigue, it took a lot out of me. And I don't think it's going to, and I'm sorry, I'll make a sentence. Every 7 years, you get a sabbatical from teaching. So you get a semester off. So, but a lot of people don't get that in life. So even though during my sabbaticals, I'd be directing more and traveling more and that kind of stuff. So now I need to take a pause, fill that artistic. Mary Zimmerman told me this years ago because she went to Northwestern also. After you do a couple plays, you have to not work and sit on the couch, eat Cheetos, and watch bad TV because that's the only thing that's going to stop you so you can refill that artistic well. So for me, I need and I did a workshop at Kennedy Center in the fall, and that was like 5 days working people I love with all the people I love at the Kennedy Center, RIP.
RIP for real.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about that?
So if I do a workshop production reading, I can do that, but I couldn't see myself doing a full production for a year. I just need to step away and just listen.
Good for you. Well deserved. And I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah.
I really am. And you've just meant so much to so many of us. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to learn more about your story and talk with you today. Just thank you for being,
Oh,
Scott. Thank you.
well, you're one of my babies. I'm so lucky to
I
have in
am.
this town to have worked with people that became friends. I mean, what jobs do you get that in? And also the longevity, which is just beautiful because now we've known each other for 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, you know what I always do? I always go by like, what do you remember about Nadia? Like people will use Nadia as that because she's 27. So
Oh,
it's like,
I was going to,
okay,
yeah.
was she a
I remember
little
when she was
tiny
seven.
baby? Was she?
Seven.
Okay, so there you go. So then so about like 20 years. So yeah, it's just
When you cornrowed my braids for the first time.
yes. Oh my
uh,
Oh, you take it back. You take it back.
yeah,
It's just the level and it's a really good point, Scott. It's like we spend such intimate time together in our work, right? We were work colleagues, but also friends. But the work that we do is so intimate and it's
yeah,
so emotionally resonant and vulnerable.
yeah.
So there's a level that we connect on that people may not understand if we were both working at an accounting firm. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that, right? If we had chosen that field. But with your accounting firm colleagues, you're not going to dig to those deep levels of humanity
Are you going to
like
be
you
putting your
do.
hands in my hair?
Hello.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to be in HR. Somebody's going to have a meeting with HR like, listen, she's over here touching my hair.
Yeah.
This is a problem. So yeah, it's like, so I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that we've chosen this path, and just I'm looking forward to seeing you take your well-deserved rest,
Yeah.
and letting folks carry on all of the threads that you've woven into our existence.
Just what woke me up to, Themby, is when I was thinking of moving out to California, it's like I built this beautiful house and then I'm going to sell it and not live in it. Where being in town, it's like, oh, I built this beautiful house. And now I got to watch all the people that come in and move and do and put in the furniture and all that kind of stuff. So that's by staying in town. I can't imagine missing a Page show. I can't imagine Psalm. He was one of the first people I directed at when the old VAT at Arena Stage used to have the new plays. That when you go artistic, and I remember directing the Psalm. It's like, what a great guy. And now he's directing. So
and just won a Helen Hayes for it.
Helen Hayes, he was going to win one because we were nominated for so many this year.
Yeah, he was bound to win. Right?
Exactly.
Also a guest. Again, like I'm so fortunate. Like these people, these amazing people that you're talking about, we have access to a deep conversation about their whole story, their journey, their creative process. I mean, that's why I wanted to do this.
Yeah, and
because
I love that. Oh, when I saw JJ's name, it's like, when we did Jay's Juke Joint and JJ Johnson did his first writing, he's now a writer. And that was the first time I think that he had really put something up in front of people. And I was like yeah, that this is what we can do as a community. So I'm not going away because I want to see all this stuff. If there's so many things that all of us in my kind of age group that we start, it's like, oh, wow, to watch, all these youngins do this work. I want to see it. I'm sure that like Doug Brown and Jewel Robinson feel the same way. The ones that we started out, before they were even other than ATCO, we really had to strive to find our places where people wanted to work with us. So now to see, we're everywhere, that's just makes my heart sing. And having Black artistic directors in the city when we never did before,
right.
Never. So
right.
That's what I love to be here in my rest and be able to go, oh, wow, look at what we all done here. So when you come back into the city with your new job, then
okay, come on, make it.
Yes.
Manifest it, Scott.
There
manifest
you go.
Yeah. Well, Scott, this was wonderful. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best in your retirement and in your watching everyone and watching them flourish and succeed. And yeah, thank you for talking to me today.
You got it. Thank you, darling.
All right. Till next time.
Okay. Bye.
Keyboard is produced, directed, and hosted by Themby Duncan. Theme music produced by Psycho Sid. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, follow, leave a review, or give us a 5-star rating. Your support helps the show reach more listeners, and it means the world to me. Thank you for listening.